Good morning, everybody. So if we could go ahead and get started. I see a lot of familiar faces, but for those of you that I don't know, I'm Jason Seeley, the Parks and Recreation Director at the City of Winter Park. I want to thank you all for taking the time to come out today as we celebrate and recognize the next phase and getting to the building of our next new park here in the City of Winter Park. When our city manager came to me about 18 months ago and told me I'd be taking the lead from the city staff end of this project, couldn't help but the cynical part of me automatically think, oh great, I have a city project with the word progress in it, and automatically picture the cheeky social media comments that would come along with that. So there's nobody that's more excited and relieved to be to this point in the project than myself, and to be trading out 3D renderings, conceptual designs, and orders of magnitude for hard hats, construction vehicles, and construction plans. Getting to today has been a community effort with many people involved providing feedback. We had a variety of residents, different groups in the community, all part of this process. And I want to take a moment to recognize some of those groups that were part of this. First, I'd like to recognize our Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and our Tree Preservation Board for their commitment in ensuring that we provide the city residents with an exceptional park that they can be proud of, and that we continue to place a high value on maintaining and improving our tree canopy, as you can tell by the 7 oaks that we planted over a year ago. I'd also like to recognize the Winter Park Land Trust for all their efforts, not just with Progress Point, throughout the city, as they're one of our biggest advocates for parks and green space. I'd also like to recognize ACI, the lead firm in designing this project. Throughout the process, they paid attention to every detail and were very passionate in making sure that they delivered to our residents a park what they expect in this new park. They treated it just like it was a project in their own home. So having them here as a Winter Park business for so long gave them the ability to really deliver on that promise to the residents. Last but not least, I want to recognize our current city commissioners and mayor, as well as past commissioners that may be here. Carolyn Cooper, I see in the audience, that may have been involved with the project throughout, as it began and throughout. And with that, I would like to now bring up to the podium Mayor Phil Anderson.
Congratulations, Jason. You know, we made a lot of progress. I'd really like to second the note of appreciation to all the commissioners that have paved the way to this really becoming a reality. This is a 3-year work in progress that started with the election platforms of Vice Mayor DeCiccio and Commissioner Sullivan, as they joined Commissioner Cooper and Commissioner Weaver in voting to make this thing happen. And it was a milestone in anticipating what this corridor really can be and should be here in Winter Park. I'd also like to thank the neighboring businesses and the programs who've set up tables today, specifically a Collab Salon, Buttermilk Bakery, Create Your Nature, Foxtail, Mead Botanical Gardens, Seamstress Winter Park, Trustco Bank, the Urban Forestry and Community Canopy Program, and of course the Winter Park Land Trust. This is actually the second time we broke ground. The first time we broke ground was when we planted 7 oaks, and which has now become the namesake of our park. And that was a symbolic start to putting something in place that would last for generations. And there's nothing that speaks to the generations in Florida like live oaks. But now we get to take the next stage. And after 2 long years of design and permitting, we actually get to break ground on the part that our residents will get to use. You know, the grass and all of the sidewalks, and that's really what we're here today to do. We are actually in the process of selecting a construction manager who will be creating the schedule and guiding us to a completion in early 2024. I'd also like to thank Josh Nye, who worked closely with another arborist, Sean Jacobus. Sean was the supplier of these trees and has deep roots here in Winter Park. And because of that, I think we have every confidence that these are going to survive and really thrive here. I will say that when we were here putting these trees in place, Josh came up and said, "Phil, this is the best day of my life, professional life." But, and I just want to be, I'm glad we could make it a great day. And Josh, you epitomize a love of trees, a love of the canopy, and caring for Winter Park. At this time, I'd like to read our proclamation. Thank you, Clarissa. City of Winter Park Proclamation, Arbor Day, April 13, 2023. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and is now observed throughout the nation as well as the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion by wind and water of our precious topsoil, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. Whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a great source of joy and spiritual renewal. And whereas Winter Park has been recognized as Tree City, USA, by the National Arbor Day Foundation for 43 years straight, and desires to continue its tree planting ways. And whereas the creation, Seven Oaks Park, has been greatly enhanced by the planting of 7 large mature oaks for the enjoyment of all those who live and visit this beautiful city of trees. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, now therefore I, Philip Anderson, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim Thursday, April 13, 2023, to be Arbor Day, at least here in the city of Winter Park, and urge all citizens to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands and support our city's urban forestry program. Thank you very much. Josh? There you go.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, everybody, we lucked out on the weather. Very nice. And the trees are doing really well right now, too, so I'm happy about that. Okay. Thank you, Mayor Anderson, and thanks to all of you for coming out today to celebrate the groundbreaking for this wonderful new Seven Oaks Park. Before I begin my remarks, I see some really pretty important people here today. Allison Nye, my wife, is here. Chad and Gail Nye, my parents, are here. But I also want to acknowledge Sean Jacobus. I don't see him at the moment, but he's the man that grew these trees and got them here. I already mentioned the mayor, the commission, the tree board. Thank you so much for your support and working with me over these months and years to do everything we can for the trees in Winter Park. Randy and Michelle, for your leadership, and Jason Seeley and Kathleen Doss, my bosses, for supporting me in everything we do. Larry Adams and the ACI team, the land design team, and of course my urban forestry team, the parks team, and all the other divisions and departments in the city that help to get this process moving when we needed to get these trees in the ground, which I'd say, procurement, finance, streets, a bunch of different people helped out. I'm trying not to forget anybody, but thank you, everyone. So I'm going to do a little tree nerd here on you. Tell you a little bit about these trees in case you're interested. So the planting of the 7 specimen live oaks surrounding us here today is a mark of intent by our community. This extraordinary park will be a connecting point between our new library and events center at Martin Luther King Jr. Park and our beloved Mead Botanical Garden right down the street. It's a privilege to be a part of this project. It isn't often we get to build a park from scratch. It's even rarer to have the opportunity to plant such big, beautiful live oaks. If you'll indulge me, I'd like to share with you a little bit about how these trees came to us and how we will nurture them to become the anchors for Seven Oaks Park. The trees were grown by Sean Jacobus on a tree farm about an hour north of here. They were root pruned over a year before transplant. The trees, not to mention the people moving them, went through quite an ordeal to get here. They came via flatbed trucks with escorts, 4 of which were super wide loads. In order to meet specs for transport, the trees had to be pruned to allow them to lie flat and so that the crowns could be wrapped tight enough to make it down the road. The first of the trees pulled into this lot just after 3 p.m. on January 27th of last year. Once the wrap was removed, the root balls prepped, and the holes dug, it was time to start planting. Each tree weighed around 20 to 30,000 pounds and measured 40 to 50 feet tall. Watching the trees being hauled into the air and dropped into their holes by a large crane truck was truly a sight to behold, as some of you who witnessed the process can attest. Now that the trees were settled in their new homes, it was time for a little TLC. Sean's team built earthen bowls to contain the water required to protect the stressed root balls after transplant. Our irrigation crew installed bubblers and set the clock to run for an hour a day. Sean then added a treatment for the root ball, which consists of 3 parts. Don't forget this. A strong fertilizer to jumpstart growth, polystart to bind the nutrients to the root ball, and ground oak leaf mulch to mimic the organic breakdown of oak leaves in a natural setting. This treatment was performed 2 additional times since, with a further treatment to occur soon. This past December, our own city arborist, Jordan Heinrichsen, applied a tree growth regulator soil drench. Tree growth regulator soil drench. You'll be tested after this speech. This treatment slows outward growth and allows the tree to focus its energy and nutrient load on producing dense, dark green foliage and fine, white, fibrous root growth, which incidentally, I've definitely noticed the results of that already. Then just last month, the trees were carefully pruned to remove small deadwood, which occurred as a result of normal transplant stress. The story of these 7 live oaks is inspiring. It is a tale of overcoming daunting challenges to achieve something we can all be proud of. But we as a community have a much greater challenge to face. It is a challenge faced by communities all across America, the challenge of canopy loss. This is a challenge that must be met with shared resolve to contribute what each of us can to preserve and grow a resource that gives us more than we often recognize as we go about our busy lives. In an effort to foster our shared goal of a winter park defined by its lush green tree canopy, the City of Winter Park last year launched a tree giveaway program called Community Canopy. Along with our partners at the National Arbor Day Foundation and the Florida Forest Service, the City of Winter Park is offering free trees to residents, delivered to your doorstep, complete with planting guides and instructions for care. If you are a resident of Winter Park, please go to the Urban Forestry booth over here. We have set up and scan the Community Canopy QR code to get your free tree. We also have some literature over there you're welcome to. And now I know those of you who are not Winter Park residents here today are feeling left out. Don't worry, we have something for everyone. Today we have 100 Shumard oaks to give away to anyone who wants one. Actually 99, I already gave away one. So please feel free to pick up a tree and take one home with you. And with that, I'll say thank you for being here today and hand it back to Jason.
Thank you, Josh. All right, if I can now have Larry Adams from ACI come join us at the podium. He's a founding partner of ACI Architects.
Thanks, Jason. Hello, everyone. in the future, you will not need the tents, the trees will provide the shade. So we're very excited. I want to thank you, everyone involved. I especially want to thank, we're in an alphabetical relationship here with ACI, but Land Design, Kristen Raywa, and our team, Scott Weber and Caroline Aragani and all the others. But what I really want to do is thank the community and the 700 plus people that participated in the leadership's desire to have this be a special moment, not just another park. I mean, it's not often you have a city with the name park in it. And when you think about things that I've learned, and by volunteering, by the way, we all volunteered to get involved in this because we thought it was a really important piece of our history in not only the name, but if you go back and think about Winter Park and, imagine over 150 years ago, someone comes in and says, you know what, I got a vision, I'm going to build this vision, and I'm going to start by not filling in a multi-acre site in the heart of our town. I'm going to plant oak trees. They had to tear down pine trees first, and that is our wonderful Central Park in downtown Winter Park. So the blueprint was already there. All we had to do was look at it. And we also had tremendous help from some really people with tremendous diversity of knowledge and talent. I won't have everybody, and I know we're going to have we had a wonderful affiliation and inspirational effort by Winter Park Land Trust and others. But I also know that there are other people, and I see Jack. I think I see Jack Rogers out here, Jack, and other people that David Miller may be here. So this was a bunch of people just trying to have a conversation. There wasn't any design. There was a lot of conversation. The other thing I'd like to say that inspired this project that was so important was what makes parks really special, and it's trees and all that, but what's the most important thing about a successful park are that people go to it. And the flow of people is what makes parks world-class. And so as you think about those tables turning into thousands of people and hundreds of people as they'd experience now the new Central Park or this other park, part of what we call the Emerald Necklace, and our Park Avenue that activates our Central Park, this is our Park Avenue coming along here. So we have everything that's needed. The city doesn't have to plan anymore about budgeting. We've got a great park. Now, the last thing I'd really like to also say is that in the community public workshops, I just thought I'd read a couple of things that there was tremendous consensus on. And the city, to the credit of the leaders and the staff, have lived up to, is everybody said, well, let's make sure we have shade. Let's make sure that we have opportunities for things to be village scale. What gets developed around it, it contribute to that with food, with collaboration space, gateway relationships to Mead Garden, very famous, important amenity, an events lawn. This Seven Oaks, if you connect the dots, form an oval, and that oval is where the large green will be in the center. So it will have sunshine and shade. They also talked about seating variety. We'll have one of the longest continuous seating walls along Orange Avenue, which will also connect to the bus station, which has been redesigned to allow a rain canopy to be provided and a trellis there. Parking, there's some appreciable need for parking here, and it will evolve over time, and we have a place for people. And the connectivity of this green mobility of the pathways, the new pathways are going to be created to connect to other parts of Winter Park, and it to be safe, well-lighted, and maintained. So the biggest risk that our team had was to put out those renderings. And those are, we drew the Seven Oaks at the exact size that are on those renderings and the rest of it. So we sometimes buildings can fake you out, right, with renderings and things. We wanted to make sure we didn't fake anybody out with the trees. So with that, I really want to say thank you. It's been an honor, and it wasn't because of someone or somebody that this park is here. It's because of everyone and everybody. Thank you.
All right. If I can have Steve Goldman come join us at the podium. Steve is the chair for the Winter Park Land Trust.
Hi, everybody. And we really looked out on the weather today, and I'm urging everybody to please have some brownies. Very important. Anyway, I'm here to speak on behalf of the Winter Park Land Trust, a nonprofit organization dedicated to planning, expanding, and protecting urban parks and green space throughout Winter Park and the surrounding areas. We at the Winter Park Land Trust want to congratulate the city on a strong step forward toward our mutual goal of ensuring that Winter Park will be an area with sufficient parks and open space, where the footprint of existing parks will be increased, and wherever possible connected through greenways and bike paths in order to balance and reduce the adverse impacts of increasing development and population density. Attractive green space will then always continue to be an important asset and characteristic of the Winter Park area. So I especially want to thank Mayor Phil Anderson, Commissioner and Vice Mayor Todd Weaver, Commissioners Sheila DeCiccio, Marty Sullivan, and Chris Cruzado, along with our hard-working city staff for enabling and implementing this beautiful design that will be enjoyed by generations in the future. I'd also like to thank previous commissions who agreed to reserve 1.5 acres of the Progress Point property for parkland. But since then, that 1.5 acres has grown to 2.4 acres and will create a significant addition to our park system. So you just heard from Larry Adams, president of ACI Architects, and I believe we owe a great deal of thanks to Larry and to Scott Weber of ACI, who came up with the initial design of this park. And the amazing thing is, they did that completely pro bono. There was no guarantee that any business would come out of that or this park would even be built at the time. So that was a very important step forward in this process. I actually met Larry back in February of 2020, and he told me that the city of Coral Gables had possibly the best park system in Florida. It was recognized.
Second best.
Second best? Well, his goal was to make Winter Park the first best. And he asked if there was anything he could do to help bring that about. And I said, well, I'll let you know. And a couple of weeks later, I said, could you maybe do a design of a possible park here at Progress Point? And so he and Scott Weber implemented that. So thank you once again for that. I also want to thank David Miller, who happens to be a board member of the Winter Park Land Trust, but he's also a principal at R. Miller Architecture. And David created this beautiful 3D animated fly-through of the ACI proposed design that got many people excited about the possibilities of a park here on Progress Point. So it takes a village. Anyway, on that note, we would like to invite the entire community to be part of the ongoing conversation centered around planning, expanding, and protecting urban parks, green space, and greenways throughout our beautiful city and its surrounding communities. So, thank you.
So, gentlemen in our heavy equipment, please start your engines. And then a countdown of 3, at 1, we're going to ask you to actually break ground. That's our heavy equipment and our dignitaries here, including Steve Goldman. So, ready? At 3, 2, and